Welcome to another episode of Palm Harbor Local. I'm your host, Florida native and real estate ninja, Donnie Hathaway. You know, I started this podcast because I'm extremely passionate about connecting you with the people and the local businesses that make Palm Harbor so special. Palm Harbor, Florida is a great place to live, work, and play. It has everything you could dream of, from the food, the outdoors, the lifestyle, to the people in the community. I wanted to create a podcast that connected the community and inspired everyone to live better. To join this community and stay up to date on all things Palm Harbor, visit my website. It's palmharborlocal.com and sign up there to join the locals. And remember, together, we keep Palm Harbor local. So welcome, Dr. Serrano. Appreciate you being on the podcast, man. I'm looking forward to doing this.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I love what you're doing here with Palm Harbor Local, so I'm excited.
Yeah, cool. So you own Ignite Chiropractic. How long have you had that business, and how long have you been practicing your craft?
Yeah. Well, I've been practicing now for 14 years, which is
crazy.
Yes.
You don't
I
look
look,
like
I
you've
look in
been
the mirror. I'm
practicing
like, I don't feel that way, but
No.
Well, thanks. But so 14 years of practice. This current office we've been at for 4 months, I believe. We just moved into this office, but prior to this, like the business itself, we're literally just down the street.
Okay.
We've been in business for 8 years now. So we've been around for 8 years, about 4 months at this new location, and we're pumped about it.
Nice. It is a good spot. It's, centrally located, right? So how did you get into this business, and like what led you down the path of becoming a doctor of chiropractic?
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I'm passionate about what we do at the office, and it all comes back to my story. You know, when I'll shorten and give you the 30-second, no, maybe a couple minute version here. Yeah. Growing up, I was a child that was constantly sick, always on medication. And at like 2.5 weeks old, my mom said I was really colicky, and she didn't know what to do. So she literally took me back to the hospital. Like, he cries all the time. I have no clue what's going on. So they found out that I had double hernias, and immediately rushed me into the surgery room. They fixed the hernias. Yeah. And anytime you do any kind of surgery, the next thing they do to prevent infections is they put you on antibiotics.
Yeah.
So they put me on antibiotics, destroyed my gut. So from 2.5 weeks all the way through elementary school, I was one of the skinniest kids you're ever going to see. I could not hold food down. This is funny now. Probably wasn't funny back then, but I was in the hospital so often with diarrhea. Oh yeah. They called me Mr. Diarrhea at the hospital. I would always be in there for, if you're eating, sorry, I just didn't have a good gut, and I was skinny because I couldn't hold nutrients in. Yeah. So anyways, fast forward, going into middle school, I started to pass out, and they did blood work, and they said that I was hypoglycemic, and that's when your blood sugar drops. Mm-hmm. So the answer to my mom was that I had to walk around with a candy bar and a juice pack, like a Capri Sun. Because if my blood sugar, exactly, if my blood sugar goes down, I got to bring it back up. Yeah. So you give free range or free game of candy bars and juices to a middle schooler.
That's all they're going to eat, right?
And that's all I ate. And so in 2 years, I literally went from being the skinniest kid in my class to the most obese kid in my middle school class.
Wow.
And I remember being back at the doctor's office. And if you could think back to middle school, bullying starts happening, hormones start to change, girls, all the things. And I'm back at the doctor's office. They came back because they had done more blood work. And then they said, well, your grandparents are diabetic. They have cardiovascular issues, and went down the list of their medications and stuff. And then looked at my mom, and you're already on these medications. And they said, this is just in your genes. And I went home that day, and I remember like it was yesterday, because I was processing what's going on at school, processing what they have told me. And I went to my drawer. I opened the drawer. I picked up a tie. I fastened it to the door, on the top of the door. I put it around my neck, and I tried committing suicide that day. And for my first, I think, 6 years of practice, I never shared my story. But now I share that openly. I've been able to connect with a ton of students here locally, just with everything going on the mental health side of things. But I share it because I would not have ended up that way if a doctor would have sat my parents down and actually taught them what health was. Mm-hmm. Like they said, hey, yes, there's genetics involved here, but there are choices we can make. There's things that we can do to subside some of these, or to like switch some of these genes off. Mm-hmm. And that's what drives everything in our practice. And we were talking earlier about education. Like, that is the number one thing we want to do in our practice, educate our patients. Like, yes, the doctor might have said this is in your genes, but there's so many things that you can do, lifestyle choices that we can make to either to just function better, to heal better. So anyways.
So
I try showing that for you.
yeah, no, that was
Yeah.
great. And so I recently visited your practice as we were talking about, right? And like one of the things that caught my attention was like that education, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, so when you go back for like a follow-up visit, you have a 15-minute video that kind of gives you an overview of what you guys do and kind of how you guys can help and that sort of stuff. And then it's like, you have a questionnaire to write down your questions as you're going through the video and stuff. And it's super helpful. And I've never experienced that before, so it's really cool to have that. So you had mentioned something in your story about like medicine and that sort of stuff. Like why do you think medicine is what it is and I think it's changing, right?
Yep.
Like you're part of that, where now it's like educating the client on, their options and that sort of stuff, instead of before where it's just, okay, you're sick, here's what you need to feel better.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I literally, the first week in my chiropractic journey at school, one of our first classes, there was a professor that got up and said, does anybody in here do you know what doctor means? And, people said, oh, somebody who's a healer, and all these different questions or answers. And he says, no, all that doctor means, it's educator, it's teacher. That's why you could get a doctorate in horology. If you don't know what that is, that's a study of watches, horology, or watchmaker. Botany, it doesn't matter. If you put enough time and you get enough experience, you can be a doctor in anything, because you can teach any subject, right? Yeah. You can everything's taught, teachable. We as society have taken doctor to mean healer. And I think that's where we got off track. I think when we look at a person and we think, hey, that's the person that can heal me, I think we get off, because the doctors can't heal you. That healing's inside of you. Like if you cut yourself shaving this morning, what did you have to do for that to heal? Right. Nothing. Like eventually you clot and you heal. Like the doctor didn't have to do anything. Your body inside has this amazing healing power. We just have to work with that power, not against it. Mm-hmm. Shaving, right? If you're on blood thinners, that's a medication. Some people need it to save their life so they don't clot. But if you're on a blood thinner and you cut yourself, guess what happens? You don't heal. Exactly. Yeah. You don't clot it and you don't heal as quickly. You just interfered with the healing process. So that's the way we have to look at this. It's like the doctors aren't the healer. We're just here to teach you. We're here to educate you and your family, give you all your options, and then you can make the best option for your health and your family. And that's our job. I think that's the main job of doctors should be that. Mm-hmm. Let me teach you. Yes, there's medications you can take. Here's natural approaches. Now, what do you think is best for your family? And let's work together to accomplish whatever goals you have. So, so I think that's, to answer your question, I think that's it. I think we're pointing out for healing instead of saying, no, there's something that can heal me in here. I just have to figure out what's the best path. And there's just so much confusion out there when it comes to the best path.
Right. And it depends on, and it could be different for every person and kind of where they're at in their life and what they are willing to, maybe they want to try a different path and it doesn't work out. And then so they try something else. Right.
Absolutely.
So giving them that option, giving them that control.
Yeah. We're not one of those places that says, hey, I hate that, what's going on over there. Don't do that. No. There's a time and place for medications. There's a time and place for surgeries. There's a time and place for all of those things. And I think that saved a lot of people's lives. But I guess what I don't like to see is when we take a medication, I guess if somebody wants to do that's fine. But as a medical community, when we take a medication as a cover-up and let people and have people just continue doing what they're doing without actually educating them on other options, right? Just say blood pressure goes up to 300. Here's a medication. See, bye-bye.
Yeah,
it's like,
should take care of it.
Yeah, take the medication. But hey, if you did X, Y, and Z, we can potentially get you off this medication. I mean, that's the option. That's a better option, I think. So
yeah. I would agree. And that, I think that discussion that like never happened before. It was like, maybe this is the start of fixing or trying to improve your health, but here are the other options to improve it long term.
Absolutely.
So you're not on the medicine. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned, I mean, if you look at society in general, like it's shifting. Like there's a palpable shift in the next generations that they want an answer. They don't want to just take a pill to cover up symptoms anymore. Yeah. They're willing to do some work now. So
what do you think? What do you think is like the root cause of that? Or is it just like information that's been available and the internet and stuff that's kind of changed like our mindsets?
If I'm honest, like there's just there's been a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to medicine. And I think it's getting exposed. The old thought was, hey, you take this pill and it's going to heal X, Y, and Z. And now, I mean, you turn on the TV, there's enough commercials saying, hey, if you took pill X in, 10 years ago, call me, the lawyer, because this pill now causes X, Y, and Z. So,
right.
so now I think we're just more educated, like you said, yes, but there's just more exposure of, there's not the transparency wasn't there. And I think it's being exposed. They're like, yeah, that can save you and it can help. But underlying all that, there's more to be uncovered, I guess, maybe. That's the best way to say it.
I like that. So why did you want to become a chiropractor?
I didn't.
Did you ever, like, growing up, did you ever want to be, like, what did you want to grow up?
No, I said I was really sick.
Yeah.
And then became a pretty big kid. Then in high school, I started playing basketball. So I lost all the weight, but I still had terrible stomach, issues. So I'm on my first year of college, and I just know that I want to figure things out. I want to help people. So I'm doing pre-med. And probably after the first couple of months, I'm walking in the hallway, and I'm turning into the lunchroom, and there's like a graduate. I was at a smaller college, so they had a graduate fair. So like medical schools were there, and all the other schools that you can go to after if you graduate, once you get your bachelor's. And I looked over to the corner, and there's a table with a spine on it. And it was a chiropractic college. Okay. And I thought to myself, oh, those quacks. Hey, I didn't know anything better. Most of us thought at some point. And then I thought, ambulance chasers, pain, back pain. But there was a cute girl there.
You're like, oh, let me go check this out.
I have to go check this out, right? So I went up and probably did some lame back chiropractic joke or something.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and stopped. And she said, no, there's so much more to it than that. And she says, when God made the body, the brain was put here to control everything, for your heart to beat, lungs to breathe, for you to digest food. Every message has to go through the spine. And like in 2 minutes, I was just like, how come nobody's ever told me this? I'm taking anatomy and physiology right now. And yes, the nervous system controls everything. And I remember I was not one to skip school, but back then I didn't have an iPhone with Google on it or anything. So I ran upstairs to the library. I'm Yahooing chiropractic and testimonies. And it was just like one testimony after another. And I knew that day, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And that's it. So that's, for me, I'm a believer. So I think by the grace of God, he put me in that position. He put this girl there, and off I went. Actually, I've looked back at the school. I was like, can I find records of this girl? Can I find who this person was? Because I mean, literally, she's transformed my life, my kids' life. My kids are growing up radically different. I have, if I add the ages of my 4 kids, I think it's 32 years of, I would say, parenting or of care, childcare, or kid care in my house or whatever. And if I think back, we've had in 32 years, 1 bout of an antibiotic for a MRSA infection. That was a skin thing. That was this crazy thing at one of my kids. So that's different.
Wow. Yeah.
Compared to what's out there, right? Like 1 bout of antibiotics. Like that's crazy. So she's transformed my life, my family, thousands of patients, and I cannot thank this person because I have no clue who she is.
No, you can't find her.
I cannot find her.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
Well, it is kind of cool. Like I wonder if there's So before you decided to go to be a chiropractor, were you just going pre-med and you were just going to get, a doctor of medicine?
Absolutely. I was going to figure out, hey, I want to do something medicine to help people, and I don't know what that is exactly, but I'm going to that. I'll figure that out as we go. So
yeah, it's interesting how we kind of like look back and, our lives now that we're older and stuff, and there's usually like one defining moment or something that like kind of changes things, right? Especially like career-wise. Like kind of put you on a different path and stuff. So it's pretty cool that that happened for you. So you mentioned one thing about when you started early on in your practice about like sharing your message and that sort of stuff, and your belief and kind of the way you practice medicine and that sort of stuff, and having like the fear of talking and video and that sort of stuff. So you. Like if anybody's seen any of the content and stuff that you have, I mean, you go to the office and there's videos all over the place of, the video that you've created and everything. So like, how did you overcome that fear? Because I think a lot of people have the fear of talking in front of people, talking on video and that sort of stuff.
So when I first graduated from college, there's some pretty big loans, to get to chiropractic school. And I went to and I practiced for maybe like 2 weeks at a well, most people think of chiropractic clinic, which was a place where they saw a lot of auto accident cases, which is okay. Like if somebody's in an auto accident and they go to what's called a PIP clinic, right? Or an auto accident clinic.
Okay.
And I was there for a couple of weeks, and I just knew that there was so much more than just dealing with like the immediate pain. And I was really disillusioned because I was like, man, I want to share like the message of health. I don't want to treat just back pain, which is okay. Like I said, we help with back pain. They do a great job. And in that, I started to, practice, shadow another practice. And I said, this is what I want to do, which was somebody who taught health, and he became my mentor. So I went to the practice, I switched. And in doing that, I really early figured like to do this, you have to teach people. I mean, you have to get in front of people and talk to them.
Yeah.
And I would get up in front of people. And I remember it was like yesterday. So like you said, the video that you saw at the office, we used to do that, or my mentor used to do that once a week live in front of people just to explain like, hey, you're a new patient. This is what we're about. And it was about like a 30-minute talk. I came in and I was after like 6 months, I was supposed to do the talk.
Yeah.
And I walk in and I do the talk and I walk out and everybody, like the whole team looks at me and says, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And like, they looked at the watch like, yeah, it only took you 7 minutes. You did a 30-minute talk in 7 minutes. Like, what'd you miss? I'm like, I said everything. I still talk fast now, but yes, very fast. Yeah. Nobody understood a word I said. And I remember maybe shortly after that, there was a defining moment where I said, you know what? I have to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to have to get over my fear. I'm going to have to get better at this. And I said, anytime I'm invited to speak in front of a group or whatever it looks like, if it's to share the message of health, I'm doing it. And just slowly but surely, I'm not great at this, but I think I can at least communicate the message that I'm trying to communicate. And that's it.
So I think what helped you like overcome that fear is just like the bigger why of like, this is what I want to do. This is my purpose. And if I'm going to be able to do that, I have to be able to talk in front of people.
100%. And I just felt this need, like people need to know what I know. Like I took it as a gift. I have this gift and people have to know this. Like, there's lives out there that could be transformed from this message. So you're absolutely right.
I like that. So you mentioned this a couple of times, but, and then like in your questionnaire, like when you have new patients, like you ask this for them, and that's to define health. And so like when I read that, when I first got there, I'm like, I don't really know how to define health, So I want to hear like your definition of health and kind of where that came from.
Yeah. When we do define health, typically in our society, we define it as how we feel, right? If I feel good, I equate that to being healthy. Yeah. And it's because look at the commercials, right? If you have a headache, you take a medication, it makes you feel better. But at no point does that medication actually build health in my body. So if we're going to define health, all we have to do is look up the definition of health and let's go by the definition. And it doesn't matter what dictionary, what Google search you do, every single time, the definition of health is going to have one little word in there, and it's function. It's how your body's functioning. So health really equals function. If I'm functioning well, I like to say if I'm functioning at 100%, like that's ultimate health. If I'm on the other side at 0%, we're not here anymore.
Right.
And every single one of us, every decision that we make either drives us towards better health, better healing, better function, or moves us towards sickness, disease, and early death. I think it's kind of funny. My previous practice, I was just north of where we are currently, and I put my practice in a little strip mall, and next to me, they end up building a Dunkin' Donuts. Nice. And then if I go 2 doors down, they have a Domino's Pizza now. Nice. Now they're doing like a pretzel house where I used to be. But I always joke with patients, on that health continuum, right, 0 to 100, if I ate breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts, lunch and dinner at Domino's, and then maybe had some snacks at the pretzel place, like we know which way I'm going. I'm going towards 100. And so we get this, but nobody ever teaches it like this. We don't view it that way. But when we start to view health on that continuum of 0 to 100 and function, then we start to make different decisions. When we look at a medication and say, well, is this really increasing function? And then we can ask the question, well, if this is not, what is it that I can do to actually increase function so I'm not having, you plug in the blank, cholesterol issues, blood pressure, acid reflux, headaches, whatever that is. Yeah. And then let's look at the root causes that we can actually work on to increase function so you're not having these symptoms.
Yeah, so I like that. So what are like some probably generic, like basic tips and stuff to practice good health? Like if someone like this message is kind of new to them, or they're not
Yeah.
really sure where to start, like what are some basic foundational principles that they can
That's great.
start?
In our practice, we follow, or we put together what we call the 5 pillars of health.
Oh, I love it.
And number 1 is your mindset. Like our mind, if you are not sleeping well, you're not healing well. Like we heal when we sleep and rest.
Yeah.
So if you're anxious all the time, if you're stressed out, if you're on the go all the time and you're not getting your enough rest to your soul and your mind, we know that's going to impact your health. Right? People say stress kills you. Yeah, it does. It increases cortisol. And I can go through the whole hormone pathway and neurotransmitters. What happens with that? It does. It shortens your life. Number 2 is nutrition, right? And if we eat more nutritious, healthier foods, guess what? That's going to increase health in our body. Number 3, movement, exercise. Like we're not meant to be sitting here in front of microphones or in front of a computer. Like our bodies are meant to move.
Yeah.
So nowadays, because we're not getting movement in, like tilling the field and grabbing crops and moving, and we have to make sure that we're cognizant of when are we going to put the time in to actually move our bodies. Number 4 is decreased toxicity. Like when you look around us, we have more chemical toxins in our environment than ever before. And this is impacting not us as adults as much. It is, but it's even impacting our next generation even more.
Yeah.
Every year they come up with more and more chemicals and products that are, when we ingest them or we put them on our skin, it affects our hormones. It affects the way we heal and function. And then the last one is the nervous system, is our posture. Grandma always said, sit up straight.
Yeah.
There was a reason for that. If you look at as you lose posture, there's a ton of research that shows the more deviation you have from neutral posture, the more complications you have to your health. There's a direct correlation. Oh, wow. I would like to say if you've ever been to a nursing home, I always ask people, like, what's the posture? Nobody's sitting up straight and prancing around, right? Right. They're stooped over, and that's the nursing home posture. Because as you lose posture, your nervous system can't function as well, and you start to lose function. So I think those are 5 things that you can just pick one, right? If your mind,
start with one, right?
Yeah, you have your nutrition, you have toxicity, you have exercise and posture, and your spine. And just, that's what we tell patients. Let's start with the spine, which controls everything. Let's move then to the next step for you. What's the next challenge? And then we help patients, and for the next 6 months, year, 2 years, they'll look back, and as they start taking small steps in these 5 pillars, they'll really see the change and transformation, not only for themselves, but for their family.
Yeah. And it takes time too. Like that's the key, absolutely. Right? And just starting with one, I know for myself, like mindset is like putting myself, there's certain things that I can do, to kind of start my day or just throughout the week to kind of keep myself in that like kind of right mindset to kind of handle the challenges that come up with, day to day, having a family, a job, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever shared that here? How do you start your day? Because that's always fun and interesting.
Yeah, I've shared it like a few different things, but I think for me it's, so I read a book over here that I have on the desk, Miracle Morning, and that kind of like started, the path of like, how do I start my day and that sort of stuff, right? So he calls it savers. So S is, let me see if I can remember all this. Scripture, so like journaling something. A is for affirmation. So if you have an affirmation, journal it, write it down, or just repeat it to yourself. V is for visualizations. So visualizing your goal or your day, whatever it is. E is for exercise. R is for reading. And then the last S is for silence. So like meditation or anything like that, right? So if you can fit, his thing is like to do all that within an hour. So if you can do all that within an hour, like it doesn't have to be long, like exercise for 5-10 minutes, whatever you have time for, just to do all those things in the morning,
I love it.
And that just sets you up for the day.
I have something similar. I go through literally almost the 5 pillars, basically.
Okay.
So the 5 pillars of health, I try to each one of those hit something on each one.
Yeah.
So I said mindset, right? Like you said, I do what I call a 15-minute triathlon, spiritual triathlon. Okay. So I'll read 5 minutes of scripture. For me, I journal for 5 minutes and then I pray for 5 minutes. Okay. So that's the mindset part. Exercise, I try to get, like a hit training, 12 minutes to 15, maybe 20 minutes. Yeah. Some type of hit training. I'll do a green drink to help to get nutrients in and for detoxification. And then this might be a weird one, but I do something called rebounding. Rebounding. Okay. Yeah. Just like a small trampoline, and you rebound for a minimum of 5 to 10 minutes, almost like you're jumping rope on it. And that helps with lymphatic drainage. So at night, your body is healing, And that healing process, it creates a lot of toxicity and byproducts. So that goes into your lymph, so then it can get out of your system. So when you're doing that rebounding, that's great to get the lymphatic system, flowing and running and going. So,
okay.
So that's a 5 pillars. I go through that, and that's how I start my mornings. So,
yeah.
Similar, a lot of similarities.
Right. And I think that's the key, right? Is just to find whatever path works for you, or whatever ideas work for you, and just stick with those.
Yeah, that's great.
I like that. So what are some things that being in Palm Harbor, one thing I like to ask everybody is like, what do you do outside of work when you're not working, or what do you enjoy doing?
Oh, that's a good one. At this moment, I have 4 kids. I don't know if I said that earlier. It's spending time with the kids and family.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like, it just takes all the time. But when I do have time to myself, other than that, I do enjoy golfing. Yeah. So,
golfing. I like it.
So I try to get out once a week on Fridays after work, sneak out before the kids get out of school.
Yep. There you go.
So yeah, that's kind of.
Do you have what's one of your favorite courses around here?
I play up in Cypress Run.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little north of Palm Harbor, Tarpon Springs. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. I've heard good things about the course. Yeah. I like that. Awesome. Well, this has been fun. I appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing, your business and everything like that. So thank you, Dr. Serrano.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of Palm Harbor Local. I really hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. Now, if you're looking to connect with the guest or just get more information on the episode, then you can check the description below. I'll have all the links in the episode, as well as a link back to my website. It's palmharborlocal.com, where you can stay up to date on what's going on with the podcast and sign up there to join the locals. Let's get after it this week. And remember, together, we keep Palm Harbor local.